Okay, hello, everybody. Welcome
Hi,
to
Tammy.
the Taxing District meeting. If you can hear us, give us a wave. We had some technical difficulties. Sorry, we had an old link or something. So thanks for your patience. Sorry. Late. The commissioners are just going to do a quick little approval of the minutes of the June 16th meeting. And my fellow commissioners, did you have an opportunity to read the minutes, and do you have any corrections?
I have no corrections.
No corrections.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. All in favor? Aye, thank you. So the minutes are approved. Okay, so just following the agenda, we're going to start with update of the Bailey Beach procedures, and I'm going to turn that over to Commissioner Barbas to speak about the beach.
So on Bailey Beach, as you know, we introduced new standards when we reopened the beach in May. And this included limiting access so that we could properly physically distance everyone at the beach. And so we have extra lifeguards on, and we have gate guards on now at the gate whenever the beach is open. We've adjusted our hours. We are now open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we are not allowing non-residents to come in unless they are a guest of a resident. We have had pretty much every weekend, we've had to close the beach for a short period of time as it got too crowded. I think last Saturday or Sunday was the longest. We probably went for 2 hours where we were restricting access. Usually it's been more like 15 minutes to half an hour. But I think generally it's worked. There are concerns about the playground, and we have kept that closed. All playgrounds in Norwalk are closed. In our case, even though the CDC has ruled that the virus, they don't think can live for long periods of time on hard plastics and metal, the fact is that playground is very tight. And so we did not feel like there could be proper physical distancing. And therefore we have continued to keep it closed. Otherwise, everything's pretty much on track. Little League just came back this last week. And so there's a fair deal of activity taking place at Bailey Beach. It almost feels like a normal summer. So that's kind of where we are in Bailey Beach. I think for now, we're going to stay with that. We're going to stay with those hours. We're going to stay with those standards and those procedures. That's it on Bailey Beach, Tammy.
Okay, great. Then we'll have an update on other district properties, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Igneri to speak about Pinckney Park.
So I think turn your computer
can't
down so you
speak.
can pick up. Well, I'll unmute you, but then you have to mute yourself, Tammy.
Okay.
You're unmuted.
Just going to talk about. Hey, I could talk. Good evening. One second. Okay. At Pinckney Park, we continue to keep the park closed to cars and vehicles of all sorts. The only exception being during the hours of Seaside Delights. And if you're handicapped and need to get into the park. We found the park was being inundated with out-of-state cars. And primarily, they were dumping all their garbage in our pails and it was overflowing. So we've decided to close it for the foreseeable future. And it's had a nice benefit, cleaner. If you look, the lawns are nicer. We've also planted some very nice evergreens over near All Seasons to block the fence. The garden in the back is finished, and so is the marine building. They call it the boathouse. So the park is looking good, and we have a nice summer. Thank you.
There we go. All right, thank you, Commissioner Igneri. Sorry we're having a little trouble with the muting and the unmuting here tonight. Our first attempt was better. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the update of the old school fence. We reviewed the procedures last time, and with regard to the Black Lives Matter sign, we've had a number of residents inquire and let us know that they feel it is actually a political statement. The sign has been up for 4 weeks, and we feel that that has been longer than our 2-week notice for most signs. And we would like to suggest to residents that they take that movement and bring it into their own yards. Everybody is welcome to have whatever signs they want on their private property. So we're going to ask that the sign be taken down and suggest people can do that in their own yards. The rules, you know, we're following the rules. We gave an exception, and that's where we stand there. Do either of the commissioners have anything else to add to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then the next update is the Bell Island Bridge, bridge jumping. We continue to
And
have.
Tammy, before you go on, there are two, you might want to take comments on that.
Sure, sorry.
Priscilla Farrar wants to comment, and Jillian
Okay.
Schutzwateron said that was a community contribution. I'm not sure what that means. I can unmute. I think I can unmute.
Hold on, we're trying to take comments on the sign on the fence. One sec, please.
Okay, she's unmuted.
Okay, it's Priscilla. Can I be heard?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I just thought for the record, it was worth noting that the emergence of the sign also kind of spontaneously gathered a lot of community support. And that resulted in raising $5,000. Close to that amount, after fees were taken out, was sent to the Carver Foundation in South Norwalk. So I think there's a good result here that has nothing to do with anybody's political campaign. I'd really like that to be just acknowledged for the record. I know there were detractors. Of course, there were juveniles who defaced the various signs, but the last one that went up felt as though the community had reached a feeling about the importance of addressing institutional racism. So I'm happy for that. I also request some review of signs like birthday signs that have been up there many, many weeks, and that if nobody complains about, they stay up. And I was really hoping for some even-handedness with when it would come down. But thank you, Tammy, for everything you said at the last meeting and for sticking your neck out, which I know wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for anybody involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Priscilla, for your comments. And you're absolutely right. We want to thank the community and acknowledge that funds were raised for the Carver Center, and that shows a lot of community spirit. Does anybody else want to speak to the fence?
So Jillian wrote, I agree with Priscilla and Brent. And Brent wrote, there's been a ton of support from the Rowayton community, and we believe the majority of the people here would like it for it to stay up. Brent Arnold would like to speak. Hold on a second. Okay, Brent, you have the floor.
Hi, it's Jane Seymour's here with Brent Arnold. We agree with everything Priscilla said. We felt like there's been a huge amount of support from the community here about the sign being up. It's a positive message. It continues to stay relevant. We'd love for it to be able to stay up a bit longer. It seems like people are still able to put up their other signs. There's plenty of room up there. I think that considering what's going on right now and the momentum, it would be really nice if we could keep it up for a little bit longer.
Well, we've had a number of comments sent to the commissioners, at least 6 people that have asked us to remove it. So I would like to respectfully say it has been up for a month, and I do think individuals have the opportunity to put a sign like that in their own yard, and there are residents that feel it is a political thing. So for now, I think let's take it down, and then, you know, if people want to revisit this next month, then maybe we can put it up again. And
I
I'd like
did
to
miss,
ask them-
I did miss some of what you said. I'm sorry. It was breaking up. I do think if we could have some sort of platform where we ask the community who supported it and who didn't, I can assure you that you would have many, many more people saying that they would like for it to stay up, that they support it being up. I think 6 people compared to the amount that are for the sign, there's probably a very great difference. If you'd be open for us trying to, you know, do some sort of poll to see who's in support of it for longer and who's not, that would be wonderful. I understand you do have a limit for how long the signs can stay up for. I've seen signs stay up there for, birthday signs have stayed up there for months. So you know, not everyone's going to be behind something that, you know, has some meaning behind it, but it doesn't mean it's not important, and it doesn't mean it's not right. And when we spoke about this last month, we discussed the fact that it's not a political message. It's a message about equality for all people. And I think that's something that Rowayton should be behind.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. And again, I hope you can hear me. Again, we do monitor the fence, and perhaps we've been a little lax sometimes, but a district property manager will keep an eye on the time frame that signs are up there and give other people opportunity to put it up. And in the past, we have, you know, taken things down when their time has come. So I think we'll do the same now. And then it's up to you if you or your friends or whomever want to revisit or, you know, try to get a poll. But we have had a number of people say to us that, you know, it's been up for a month, and the guidelines that we have are 2 weeks. So, and again, please use your private property to express your point of view. Okay.
Can I just request that we're able to remove it ourselves so that we can still have the
Oh, please,
sign?
of course. Yeah, we've never, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, you know, we're not taking anybody's sign, and you can certainly retrieve it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so then the next item on the agenda is the update on the Belle Island Bridge. And we talked a lot about this at the last meeting. The crowds on the street seem to have diminished quite a bit, but there are still mostly young people jumping from the bridge at low tide, and it is very concerning. Some of our Common Council members felt that we were putting ourselves, the district, at a risk of liability if we put up a sign that says "do not jump." But we feel that if we don't put some warning, we're, you know, sort of not acting responsibly, because we don't want anybody to be hurt. And there are kids coming from areas that are perhaps not by the water. They don't understand the high tide and the low tide. But we are going to put up some type of a sign that warns people about when not to jump with the tide. So do either of my other commissioners want to speak to the bridge jumping?
Tammy, I just want to say I concur with you. I would rather us take our chances and put up some signage and put up something what we talked about, something on the bridge itself showing when it was low tide, or if you can see this line, it's too shallow, don't jump. I think we, you know, while some have said that exposes us to liability, I think it's our duty to make that indication, and we should not make decisions based on the possibility of liability. You know, we do have insurance, and you know, I don't think any of us want on our conscience that we didn't do as much as we could do to prevent an accident from happening.
Thank you. Commissioner Neary?
Priscilla Farrell wants to comment, and maybe Michael Florio. Hold on. Where's this? Oh, where is she saying?
She's on the two
No,
under
but
you.
I can't, oh, here we go. Oops.
Thank you. Probably 4 times a week since I do this walking route every single day past the bridge, I'm picking up a lot of litter that the kids leave there. Usually they're glass bottles and plastic bottles. You know, there's sometimes fishing line and I get that too, but it's a place where they litter almost every day. It's regular and it offends the heck out of me. I'm sure you can't do signage about no littering, but it's an area that if it isn't picked up, it's gonna, all of that ends up in the water. And that's probably my aggravation, is the plastic falling and the bottles falling into the water there. I can't hear you, but I'm done talking.
So,
Here, you're
now.
unmuted.
Okay, thank you, Priscilla. I think since the beginning of the pandemic, there's more trash everywhere. It was a problem we were having at Pinckney Park. It's a problem we were having at the community dock. And it seems, you know, with all the takeout wrappers and whatnot, that the trash is just more of a problem at the moment. I don't think that putting a trash can there is necessarily the solution to the problem, even though it's sort of a tempting idea. But there is a trash can at the Belle Island Gatehouse Park. If we can get kids to use that, I totally empathize and don't want all that stuff going into the sound. It is a vexing thing, but maybe as we walk by, I think people aren't picking up trash like they used to when they go out for a walk because they're afraid that there's coronavirus on the trash. If I walk over the bridge, I will do my part to try to at least pick some up when I go by, and perhaps, you know, other residents can too, or we can remind the kids as we walk by that, hey, you shouldn't be jumping at low tide, and please take your trash with you. Okay, does anybody else want to speak to the Belle Island Bridge? Yes, it looks like Michael Florio. One sec, Michael, try to get you unmuted.
Yeah, well, I don't know, does he want to speak?
He did, he raised his hand. One sec.
Oh, there's a lag when you hit this, that's the problem.
There's a bit of a lag from the muting and unmuting.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me join your meeting. Regarding the bridge, I was wondering, if we are going to allow children to keep using the bridge, if we could make some very cheap improvements, so to speak, in the way the kids get out of the water, climb up that ramp, and then also there's some very sharp, rusty metal edges that I would be happy to volunteer. Maybe somebody could help me rounding some of the rusty metal edges where the kids get out of the water. Just doing some basic safety improvements that would not affect the look of the bridge. Even a rope going from, so kids can pull themselves up without the danger of tumbling down that ramp. Because I've noticed that there are some very cheap, easy safety fixes that could be done that would really I like the idea of Mike's idea of even a line at low tide. Don't jump if the line, if the line is exposed. But I think ropes, dulling off some of those rusty metal edges, they're jagged, sharp edges all along the wooden guardrail. Super, super dangerous. If a kid were to trip on the gravel and catch his neck here, if you go to the bridge, you'll see those jagged edges where a kid would fall onto that iron. And like I said, simple things could really make it, many, many times safer. So I don't know, just an idea.
Great, thanks for your ideas. So it's along the guardrail mostly that you're referring to, the jagged edges?
There are steel stanchions holding up the wooden railing where the cars can go over. It stops the cars from going over the side.
Okay.
Those metal stanchions are extremely sharp, jagged edges that could easily be ground to a curve, and it would be much, much safer.
Yeah, before they renovated the bridge, there were rebar spikes in the water that you wouldn't necessarily see, and I thought those were removed I believe those were all removed when they redid the bridge a few years ago. But it is a city roadway, and maybe the commissioners will discuss whether we want to reach out to the city or have district employees make some minor adjustments with our staff. But thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
Great
Thank you.
suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else want to speak to the bridge? Nope. Okay. Then the next item on the agenda is any new business to be brought before the district. Do my commissioners have any topics to bring up? My fellow commissioners.
I do not. But I know there's a member of the public that would like to speak also. You should call him Jeremy at some point.
Okay.
Drew Seith, I believe, has a topic he would like to bring up, and he is now unmuted. Hi, Drew.
Hey there. So some of you may have seen that Tim Widmer started a post on Nextdoor about the pond by the elementary school, suggesting that it might be good to have some sort of aerator put there to at least help improve the situation with all the algae that forms on that pond. Tom Livingston was nice enough to respond and do some work in talking to the city about whether they would allow us to do something. And at least on Nextdoor, he's come back and said, yes, there is support in the city to at least allow us to do something. And so, Tim would be here talking about himself, but he's got a different commitment tonight. And so I said I would bring it up to you all to ask if the 6th Taxing District would consider funding a solar powered aerator for the pond, similar to what has been done at Tilly Pond by the train station in Darien. Tim has called the town of Darien and talked to them about what they've done. And he's done some preliminary research that shows that there's a solar powered version of an aerator that would essentially be a fountain that would cost somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500. So not a big investment. Mm-hmm. Will it solve anything? Everything that's needed? I doubt that. But would it make things better possibly for a relatively low investment? I think that's possible. Mm-hmm. And so what I wanted to do was to ask the 6th Taxing District Commissioners if you would consider a small expenditure to install a solar powered aerator there. We're happy to share the research that we've done with you to help you understand what possibility is there. But we think it's a relatively small investment that could potentially have a nice improvement to the look of the pond. And also, I'm sure all of the critters and birds would like a nicer, less algae related pond as well.
I'll speak to that. Okay, thank you, Drew. We really appreciate your input. The commissioners and the gardeners and the city of Norwalk have multiple times looked into how we can address let's just call it algae for lack of a more scientific term, if everybody's okay with that. And first there was the issue of could we get it dredged? And the city tells us, no, it's like $500,000. That's really not possible. Then we had the whole fiasco cutting down all the trees at the dam, which was, a mindless state project. That's my opinion. And the silt that comes through under the school parking lot, and the water sometimes actually runs back into the pipe. So there's not a lot of water flow there. And the aerator suggestion is a good one. However, it might even be that the pond is so shallow that you can't even do an aerator, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't look into it. And maybe somebody could volunteer to go out there and just dig a hole deep enough to put the aerator in, short of dredging it. It is a challenge. We've talked about sterile carp because they eat some of the algae or whatever the greenery is, but then the waste from the fish creates a whole nother problem. So it's tricky, and we are all in favor of doing it. Maybe we can work with our Common Council members, because the pond is not actually property of the 6th taxing district, it's the city of Norwalk. So we have to work with our partners at the city. And in general, we find, the DPW or Parks and Recs, I guess, is, they try, but there are limitations. But anyway, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to try. And if you do happen to have just, the $1,500 estimate for the aerator, and you want to send that on to the commissioners, we would love to have that. And if you need our email address, just let me know. And we all would like it to look a lot better than it does. It's very frustrating. I would like to replant all the trees that they took down, but if we do that, we'll get in big trouble.
So one thing,
2 years, we have to wait.
we've been, when they replaced the dam there, the water level was supposed to go higher, which is supposed to make a difference. That doesn't seem to really have happened.
Mike, I don't think people can hear you.
Yeah,
You're muted.
well, I'm talking on yours.
Oh, okay.
That's why so you don't have to switch on. And we did when Tim posted that, I had just revived the topic with the gardeners who had been involved in it originally. Unfortunately, the lady who had really done the most work on this, Tia Seide, moved to California, didn't save her files. I went through all our old files, but I couldn't find any of her work. She had done a lot of work. There has been a similar problem in Darien, not at Tilly Pond, but at the Goodwives River. And basically there's a lot of sediment comes off 95, sand, and that's what really clogs, and that's what needs to be dredged out of the pond. So that is the solution. I think it's like a $500,000 solution. And John Igneri, who's also worked on this a great deal, he says the water depth is so shallow that an aerator would not work. But we can double check with DPW. But I think really the answer is dredging. I think Drew wanted to say one more thing, so hold on 1 second while I see if I can fix this. Oops. Oh, hold on, Drew.
Oops.
There you go. Go ahead.
Thank you, Debbie and Mike. The only thing I'd say to that is, are we sure that it couldn't make a difference? And maybe it doesn't solve the problem completely, but if it improves it by 25% or 50%, is that worth it for a relatively minor expenditure? And my second question would be, Tammy, you mentioned, potentially taking a look at this, but that the city's got to get involved. It felt to me like, wow, all of a sudden this becomes a complex thing that lots of parties have to participate in. And how do we get something like that addressed? As opposed to just saying, oh, it's really complicated and we're not going to do anything. Which I'm not saying you all are saying. I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound like that's what I'm suggesting you are saying. I'm just asking, how can I, as a private citizen, help this along?
All right, I think I'm unmuted. There we go. Okay, so Drew, sorry. What I was suggesting is definitely please send us the information because the commissioners will work with the city. And I know that if we don't want to try to make things more complicated than they have to be. But on the other hand, if we just, got some money and put the aerator in and somebody from DPW drove by, they'd kind of be like, what are you doing with our pond? So, we have to play within the rules and guidelines. But we could say, let's have an experiment. And we've been talking about aerators for a long time. And even if there isn't enough water, hey, you're right, maybe it can help 25%. So I think please send that to us and we'll see if we have some funds available. Maybe the garden club has some funds. I don't know. We'll find out and we could do a Facebook page, GoFundMe for an aerator in the duck pond, see if we can raise some money. All right.
Ducks will go for it.
Yeah, the ducks might really like it. Does anybody else want to speak to the duck pond? And then if not, we're going to go to Officer Jeremy Sally.
He left. He's not.
Oh, shoot, he left the meeting. All right. And then,
Well,
Everybody left too.
and then
you
we'll
know,
see.
I will. I think Jeremy couldn't stay on any longer. We should have called him on at the beginning, but there has, been a rash of car burglaries, car thefts. There were 15 cars stolen in June. All those cars had their key fob in the car. So, it's opportunistic and people need to make sure their cars are locked and keep their fobs in their house when they're not using their car. Darien's been having this problem, Wilton, Westport, Greenwich, it's everywhere. It's not just here. And the police have caught a couple people, but the laws, if you're under 18, you basically don't get charged. And these kids are back on the street doing the same thing the next day. So I think that's what Jeremy would say. We haven't had any reports in the last week or 10 days, so maybe it's quieting down or maybe more people are locking their cars. We did have Hannah Bildall did want to bring something up about Bailey Beach. So I will try to unmute you. There you go. Oh. You were unmuted. There you go.
Hi, thank you. Thanks so much for letting me join hosting this. I just had a few questions about sort of the state of Bailey Beach, and Sue, I want to thank you so much for all the work that you do there. I've noticed that the ladder on the smaller dock closer to the beach is broken and there isn't one, and seen like a few kids swimming out and not realizing they can't get onto the dock, and it's a little problematic, I think, from like a safety perspective. And so just was curious what the status of getting a ladder put on the dock was.
So those ladders are not stock.
Okay.
Those ladders you have to custom order. We ordered one 6 weeks ago and we are still waiting for it to come in. And the same thing happened with the buoy line. You would think that would be an off-the-shelf product, but it is not. That also was special ordered and we still don't have that yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's a similar question. There was like people and some boats over the weekend that were definitely like where the buoy line would normally have been. And so I was just curious about that. And I know that this is sort of like a topic that comes up frequently. The sand, I think it was discussed at the last meeting at the beach. There seems to be, and it's like the course of nature, but it looks like the sand is, sorry, my dog's squeaking a toy. A lot of sand, like nice beach sand, sort of over by where the picnic tables are, and it's sort of now gotten to the point where it's like mounding up on the sidewalk. Has there been any like research or any quotes gathered to like have that sand moved back over to the beach where there's a lot of shells? And I think that might be potentially more cost effective than just replacing new sand, because there is great sand at the beach. It just seems to be kind of in the wrong place. So
a lot of work has been done on this.
Yeah.
Over a period of years, actually.
We dug some test holes quite deep to see what the quality of the sand is deeper. What happens is it migrates up. There was a group of residents who did a lot of extra work themselves about 2 years ago. And they actually donated a piece of equipment that we use almost every day on the kind of sidewalk side of the beach. All those shells, especially on the Rowayton Point side, all those shells, that all came this winter in storms. Those shells were not there a year ago. So it is Mother Nature. We've talked to several different engineers. Everyone tells us the same thing. You're fighting Mother Nature. Weburn is very kind. They have a big machine that they use, and they come over and they try to sift through the sand. But this last winter's storms were such that we just really can't get it is a little better, but we can't get ahead of ourselves. We did have a skid down there in May, and we shifted a lot of sand from where you're talking about. But we used the skid for 2 days, and we moved a bunch of sand, but it's kind of like a drop in the bucket, unfortunately. So it's some of that sand is migrated, it is shifted. A lot of it actually came from Hurricane Sandy. And at that time, after Hurricane Sandy, the picnic tables were actually buried by sand. And
Yeah, I
we
remember
removed
that.
a lot of that sand and shifted it. But whatever, it's Mother Nature, and our resources at the end of the day are not infinite.
Okay, and I appreciate it. Yeah, I know that there's a lot of work has been done to the sand at the beach, and it's obviously something that people talk about a lot. I was just curious in terms of like a sort of like community gathering. Has there been any thought into like sort of a community work day, maybe like at the beginning of next summer, to sort of like get the beach ready? Because I know obviously, people want to be able to use the beach and have it like nice and safe, and but there is a limited number of resources. Like, has this ever been explored? And, is this something that the community, could put together?
Nothing under those exact lines has been discussed. Obviously, there have been efforts. There was a community effort that brought the playground. There have been different community efforts, but there has not been one in that area specifically. The RCA usually every year has a trash bash, and their turnout's been, a little below what you would expect. I have had a bunch of different people write periodically about, oh, the beach should look better, this and that, and many comparisons to, oh, look at Weed Beach in Darien, but we're not Darien, we're Rowayton. So I think some people got organized and wanted to try to do something. The gardeners do a lot of work down there. That whole area they kind of do themselves. I'm sure if an effort was made or a bunch of people got organized and wanted to do something, we would, be very open-minded about it. Obviously, we would want it to be in sync with what our plans are for the beach. We never really had a full master plan. We do have $75,000 allocated to improve the drainage, because that is a serious problem, not so much at the beach itself, but by Little League and tennis. And that's kind of our next effort and where we're planning to spend money. The whole sidewalk and safety intersection project we had pretty much got put on hold. We were trying to work out an agreement with Rowayton Point, which we never were able to finish because COVID-19 interrupted everything. So that project will take place next year. I think we are looking at ways of having, part of the problem with Bailey Beach is there are a bunch of different people that the RTA is doing one thing, Little League's doing something else. It's not coordinated. And so we have had some discussions to maybe have one person being responsible for complete oversight of that property. So that's something we've just started discussing. Anyway, so that, that would tie in with kind of trying to come up with a plan. So, we're all ears. If you have a proposal, feel free to make one, and we'll definitely review it and figure out how we can proceed.
Awesome. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I know I've spoken with quite a few people who are ready to volunteer and help and do whatever they need to do. So I would, love to sort of get something together and can send it your way.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
You get like a bucket brigade of all your young, strong friends that have good backs and
Yes.
provide, some equipment, some shovels.
Yeah.
And buckets. Okay, that could be a fun event.
Thanks, Sammy.
Welcome, thank you. All right, so then I would add to the piece about the automobile thefts in Rowayton. There are kids that are doing a lot of partying behind the Rowayton school, and they tend to migrate over here onto the district property. And we do have our security detail and the police patrolling those things on a regular basis. So if you know who any of those kids are, you might want to recommend that they don't do that. We're really trying to keep the district properties safe and clean, and we don't want beer cans and whatnot strewn around, and we don't want illicit behavior on our properties. Yes, it looks like Michael, you want to speak to that. One sec, we'll get you unmuted.
Okay, oops. He was unmuted.
Good.
Yep.
So regarding the thefts, I've had cars broken in 4 times now, I guess, and so we're like we're very popular. So I live right on the beach on Crescent Beach Road there, and lately around 2 in the morning, around 1 o'clock, 2 or 3 cars pull up to Crescent Beach Road. A bunch of kids who I know don't live in the neighborhood get out, sit along the wall, drink a few beers, and wait till 2 o'clock. And then right around 2, they hop up and start hitting the neighborhood. I've called the police 3 times on this, so it's really interesting. And the police have driven by and to say, hey, what are you guys up to? And they're like, oh, we're just hanging out, looking at the weather. But I usually kind of hang back and watch, and they all look at the last time was, well, he goes, is it 2 o'clock yet? And the other kid goes, yeah, it's 2. He goes, all right, let's go. So I see them get up and start walking around the neighborhood in these different groups. It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
I've called the police several times. I've gone out there myself, talking to these kids. They have no regard at all. They have no fear, So I don't know what's going to happen. They're all juvies.
Yeah.
And the guys that they went through our car, and the kid was arrested the next day. They had Norwalk sent 2 detectives, and because we went through our bank statements after the kids used the credit card, they were able to arrest a Norwalk, a Brian McMahon kid, actually, from Norwalk, who's kind of like a ringleader. I think he's 17. He's going to no longer be a minor next year. But anyway, they sit on the wall and wait till it's 2 o'clock, and then they hit the neighborhood. So it's really fascinating.
Is it magical hour? Because is that like when the police change shift so they know there's nobody around until 3 or something?
I think they've determined that that's when people doze off. Like I wake up at the sound of a mouse, and I'm always on my beach, either shutting my own kids up, if I have teenagers, so sometimes they'll be with their friends on the beach, and I got to drag them in and say enough is enough. I've tried to limit it to 9 p.m. with my own kids. After 9, I don't want them on the beach. But I hear everything from where I'm positioned. And I hear the cars pull up. I hear the kids get out. They cracking open beers. You can hear the cans crack open. This is like 1:30 in the morning. And they just chill and hang out. And they just wait. I think they just wait for people to doze off. And then they just hit the neighborhood. I've watched them actually get up and start dispersing and walking around.
I don't know if you've seen 2 of the car thefts or the Ring doorbell videos, perhaps on Nextdoor Rowayton or
I've
something.
seen them, yeah.
I mean, they seem to be extremely effective. I'm sorry to have to make a homeowner spend money to, protect their property, but maybe if people did it along the beachfront there, we could kind of catch these kids in a little bit more of the act.
Well,
Because
I've had, yeah, like there was a Porsche 911 on my front yard not that long ago, and I was hoping my girlfriend bought me a gift, but I called the police, and I said, "There's a really nice Porsche 911 on my lawn," and I don't think I was that good a boy for my girlfriend to do that. So that was stolen and left on my lawn, and now I'm also living in the Brian McMahon house on Bell Island, and I got 2 places now, and the cars have been, one of my cars is broken into on Bell Island too. It's wild, I see the kids because I'm up late and I walk around sometimes. I see them. I mean, I've run into kids walking around. So I don't know what you can do about it, but
I will ask the district security to kind of patrol that area as well when he's out. That's in addition to, Officer Sally.
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you anyway. Thanks for your time, everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
All right. And so is there anybody else that wanted to speak to any issue? No? All right, so thank you. So then we've had the reports of the commissioners. Our district treasurer emailed us some information. Rest assured that the district is in good financial shape. We are paying our bills. And then could we please have the report from the fire marshal? Ed?
Hold on.
We're getting you unmuted, Ed.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Fire Marshal, I installed some detectors for a homeowner at 42 Rowayton Avenue last month. State is continuing to go with a webinar training program, probably throughout the rest of the year and into 2021. Continue with the inspections as with proper precautions. Rowayton Middle School is going to be making some changes in the building. They're going to divide one classroom into 2 and also take out or lower the ceiling in the planetarium to make that a classroom for the coming year. And Rowayton School is going to be adding an awning, retractable awning in the courtyard to have outdoor classroom. Other than that, July 4th was pretty quiet, firework-wise in town. I didn't get any reports of fireworks. I heard a lot going off, but I didn't get any reports or complaints. And that's it.
Thank you, Ed. All right, then could we please have, well, Jeremy left. So could we have the report from the district clerk, Andrea?
Yes, I forgot to bring it, of course, but I've given out approximately 1,725 permits. They're trickling in now instead of buckets full. And just saying, the kayak racks are all full. The supboard racks there's 7. I don't know how many are down there, 10, I think, maybe. And there's 7 rented. So I just wondered if you might think about making another kayak rack for next year, because I've had at least almost 10 other requests for spots that I haven't been able to give down.
Okay.
So 1 or 2 of those would be helpful, I think. 1 probably.
Okay.
I just got approval from you all. Thank you for the wedding on August 8th for Hannah Beldall and Trevor Sanko. And still, I assume that you would not give your permission for the wedding in August on Bailey Beach. Is that guy, what's his name? Chris Fedor.
Out of town.
And his father had coronavirus. very badly. I mean, he's in intensive care for, on a ventilator for about a month, I think. He's home now. There was one more thing, and I can't think what it is. I sent you my report, so
Yes, we
if
do.
you have questions about it, let me know. No.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. Okay, very good. And we don't really have any, Sue, you
Property
really, oh, property manager. Ed, I'm sorry, I just did fire marshal. Ed, sorry. Do you want to do property manager?
Yes, please.
And then
It's,
we'll ask you if you
okay.
don't go away. Sorry, Ed, go ahead.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Ed.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. We had the contractor that's been doing the work at the paddle hut. They sealed the exhaust vents around the heating vents in the main building where we had some leak problems and that came into the library attic. Locked in a propane price from Galt for the coming year for 169.9 per gallon. And Bailey Beach, as you know, there was a new router was installed for the cameras. So the security cameras are in operation. We replaced the lock on the ladies' room door, and Seaport Electric added an outlet this week for the ice machine that the concessionaire had requested, but we needed to add an outlet to make that safe. Picnic Park, public bathroom was painted by our employees. We purchased a new crosswalk sign in use for the farmers market. And I made Brian and I talked about this, and it was going to be stored in the barn, except for removed when take it out when the farmers market does. I went by there today. I noticed it is out on the curb, not in the road, but on the curb. So I'm going to talk to Brian about that and see, because I'm concerned about someone going to walk off with it. We had one stolen from there already. The seawall has been repaired. I don't think it's completed, but it's been started. The contractor had been working on it. In railroad parking lot, the westbound guard shed had been painted inside and out by Peter Havens, one of the guards. 14 permit holders have turned in their permits, not commuting anymore. And as Tammy, you know, there's a number that haven't renewed. I think it's down to about 25. I contacted all of those people today by either leaving a message or email, and I did get some calls back. Some had not seen the email, the messages that we sent out, so I resent those out. All of them were very grateful for that, and they do want to continue. I do have one question. I think we need to talk about it as a case-by-case basis on opening the center for events. And one of the things on Andrea's report was that someone would like to rent the community center in August 1st for a bridal shower for 20 to 25 guests. I just think that things should be set up in place before that. One of my concerns is there should be someone from the district present to see that social distancing is maintained and people are wearing masks and that, and if that's going to be a requirement. And I just think that there needs to be, I think these people that want to rent the center need to pay to have a district employee there present. I don't know how that's going to fly, but I just think we need to, as far as sanitary too, sanitizing, because there are a lot of protocols that the state has put out for proper sanitizing, what to do, what to use, disinfecting and things like that. Have hand sanitizers, gloves available. And that's something we haven't really addressed yet, but I think we need to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Ed. I agree. I mean, we have to, at some point, I guess we have to open up a little bit, but I think we want to open up carefully. And I've been to a number of different places and seen different protocols. And I do think it should be the responsibility of the district to definitely provide like a hand sanitizer station.
Yes.
Once you sanitize your hands, I don't know if you need gloves, but then we would have to clean the property afterward. And I think we do probably have to charge people in order to do that. If they want to rent the place, it's just going to be an additional cost because it will take district employee time away from what they would be doing otherwise. Or we can hire a cleaning service that will do that, but we have to pass that cost on to the consumer or the user of the room.
A COVID fee.
Right, a COVID fee, exactly. And I guess Andrea can let us know how many of these events we're getting requests for. And if they're too big, then we're just gonna have to say no. I mean, I can't imagine that at a baby shower, people are not gonna wanna hug the expectant mother. And that's their own risk, I guess. But if they're using the kitchen, if they're bringing in food, then, things will need to be cleaned off and they,
Right. I also think that we have to just find out what kind of food they're going to be bringing in because, they say now no more buffets and things like that.
Right.
So I think that's something that Andrea could, address and find out from the people.
Yeah. Okay. There are a lot of little details, but masks, I think, are still a must. I don't know if the governor's actually mandating masks, but we are a public place. So, but if you're eating, how can you have a mask?
Right.
Temporarily, right. So these are all tricky things that we got to work out. All right.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for the update on the railroad. I really appreciate all your work on that. It was a good idea, I believe, to go back to the annual permit and, 90 something plus % of our permit holders did renew, but those that didn't, we will address the wait list, which has about 150 people on it at the end of July. We want to make sure that we give every opportunity to the current permit holders to renew.
Okay, very good.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
And I'm going to reach out to Ted Cook. He called me earlier this week and I wasn't able to talk to him, but he has some ideas for possibly running the concession in the station house, which is currently vacant. So we'll see. And then if his ideas don't work out, we'll put it out there. Maybe we'll even do a little RFP. But right at the moment, I don't think it's a winning proposition because there still aren't very many people going back into the city yet.
But we have a conversation though, or since we're all here, about the community center and what we're going to do, and when we get these requests and how we're going to proceed. I don't know if we're not going to have an August meeting. If we're getting requests to use the community center, I think we need to decide. We need to discuss and decide now what we're planning to do.
I've only had one request, and it's for August 1st, I think, and it's for a baby shower. No, it's for a wedding shower.
Okay.
With only 20 to 25 people. So I think they can easily social distance,
And what time of day is it?
I think 4 to 8 or 5 to 8, something like that. So they'll probably bring in their own dinner or maybe they'll cater, I don't know, if you wanted to do that. But I just sent her all the pricing, schedule and everything else, application and everything. So it may be too much for them, I don't know.
Okay.
But,
Well, I was thinking if it was not in the nighttime, they could use the courtyard and then we wouldn't have to worry about cleaning the community center.
well, it's,
Yeah, a lot of people.
That would be fine.
Fees,
Mhm.
and I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
If we have to go out and bring somebody in to clean it,
Yeah.
sterilize it, That's not unfair.
No, I don't think anyone would object to that.
How much though?
I don't know, we could call,
Probably.
Ed, did I send the gentleman that cleans the United Church, his name is Duleep. I believe I forwarded his
Oh,
contact information.
you did, yes.
Yeah, so
You did,
that,
Tammy.
yeah, that might be somebody that we could call on. I don't want to burden the district employees after hours type of thing. So maybe we could call on him, and would you meet with him and he could just give
Sure.
you an estimate of
Sure.
what he would charge, and then that way we can tell any potential people.
I will do that.
The easiest thing to suggest, Andrea, is that if people want to have something outside on the property, if it's a Rowayton resident, that would be certainly easier, but of course there's the weather to consider. Anyway, just a thought.
Okay.
Because the bathrooms would have to be sterilized.
Yeah, and then the bathrooms would need to be cleaned, all that.
No, I
So,
don't think that would be a big issue.
no,
A couple hundred probably would.
Yeah.
Cover that.
Yeah.
Surely.
right, well, just what somebody's budget is, I guess.
I know, yeah.
They might just have it at their house. So, all right, Ed, do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I think, like I said, a case by case basis, and I think we just have to go along with what comes up from Andrea.
Right, well, I've noticed that the library is sort of starting to have some, opening, and people can go in. And
Yes.
We have to be careful too, if we get too many people here all at once, but hopefully it can be worked out.
But do I
Yes.
have permission to let her use that if she wants to use it?
Well, if it's 25 people, I'm
No, the
okay.
library, I think is what,
This what?
the library you're asking about, or?
No, the bridal
moose
shower.
room, to
The
have a
moose room.
shower.
The last time I was in there was a couple of weeks ago. The library had the moose room made out with books. All the tables were laid out.
Oh, yeah,
I
they're
didn't know
like
anything
for
about
cleaning the
that.
books, probably.
No, I think what they were doing, if you wanted a book from the library, they put it in
Oh,
the
yeah.
room, and you had to go into that.
Okay,
Well, Woody got a couple and he just called them in what he wanted and then they got him outside. and
Yep,
handed them
I
to him.
got
But he went in yesterday.
yes,
Yeah, so-
Well,
all right,
I
well,
think, Ed should check the moose room. Flooded.
Yeah, I'm sure.
well, and the library should ask permission to use the moose room, but anyway. All right, Ed.
They
you
did
reach out to
ask.
me. Andrea will explore the possibility with this group and we'll see if we can make it work. It's only 2 weeks away. It's even less than 2 weeks away.
I know. I just
So
heard
so
about
there
it
we have
2 days
our
ago.
rules and
Okay.
regulations.
Tammy, the library did ask me a while ago to use the moose room to put packages in there that would, they sort of quarantine them there.
Mhm.
And then when I was in there to set up for the June meeting, I questioned Christina about the tables with the books on them, and she was, she thought, oh, I thought, it was okay because we were using it for the packages, but I see that they continue to do it, so maybe we want to see about having them, take them down.
Yeah, I don't want to take away from the library. I know they're
No.
serving the greater good. But if somebody does want to rent the room, then obviously
Right.
they have to clean it up.
Yeah, it has to be taken down.
Right. Okay,
Okay, I'll talk with her.
great. Sue, did you want to say anything?
Good night.
No? Like yes, no? Okay.
There you talk, Sue.
Thank you for all your hard work at the beach. I know it's been a little bit more challenging this summer with all of these new rules. We appreciate it. And tell the gate guards, keep up the good work. And I hope the lifeguards have been wearing their T-shirts and whatnot.
They are. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, Sue,
Concession.
John Gatt told me, I don't know why, I meant to go talk to him, that his shirt didn't fit right or whatever. We should just order whatever the right size is.
Jason's gonna get some more, he said. So,
By the way, Tammy, I did get a text from Officer Sally. He was having some technical issues, which is why he wasn't on, but there were some arrests a few weeks ago. And in particular, the kid who was responsible for most of it, he was the one, I don't know if I told you, they recovered a car in front of his house.
Yeah.
And the police knocked on his door and they're like, where are the keys to the Range Rover? And the cop was like, we can do this the hard way or the easy way. And the kid went into his house, bought the key and gave them to him. Anyway, this kid has now he's been arrested 30 times in the past 6 months. They finally sent him to juvenile detention in Cheshire for a while. And since then, we haven't had one incident.
How many times? 90 times?
30 times.
30 times. Okay.
Where did he live?
Wow.
On right opposite the Ely School. I think it's called Ingalls Avenue. I think that's where you live.
Wow. Well, good.
Anyway.
One bad apple
There's-
for everybody.
I've noticed there's a car that sits on the corner of the block.
Mhm. Your fault?
And well, I've seen them in other blocks,
Mhm.
New York plate, and they, I guess they're casing the street.
Yeah.
Well, you know what else they do, John, is they're looking for open Wi-Fi. You know, like sometimes they'll have a laptop. They were doing this in Belle Isle. They'll have a laptop and they're scanning and they're trying to find wireless networks that are unsecured and going in and grabbing stuff.
We got people parking outside our house, you know, in the road or off the road to use a cell phone because maybe they're from down around here and can't get service.
Yeah.
So we have to service right there.
No,
By the way,
Mike Bigby.
can we approve the minutes from June?
Yes, we did approve the minutes.
Oh, we did.
Oh, yeah, before you got here.
Sorry. We did. All right, so Drew, thanks for hanging out until the bitter end. I think, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We do not.
YouTube thing?
There's a recording of all this,
Okay, good.
which I can process now.
And we'll talk about that other issue.
Every time